detail what this pamphlet is, but I'll be happy to provide you one if you don't have it. Can we just turn off our cell phones, silence our equipment so there's no distractions during the service? And without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce Sheriff Hoffman.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate our media partners being here today to help us with this important news conference. This is a case that's almost 3 decades old, and most importantly, it's one of our first cold cases with our full-time cold case unit. So I'm extremely proud of that. But I want to speak for just a moment directly to our media partners that are here. I truly believe that if you assist us in getting this information out, not only on Esco's case, but several of the other cases that are in the bulletin that Matt talked about, and I'll briefly touch on a few of those, you can play an important role in this community in helping us solve some of these cases that go all the way back to the Walker homicide, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, back to 1959. So I appreciate you being here, and I hope whether it's your listeners or your viewers that this information will get out to them. I want to take a moment and identify the folks behind me here. I have County Commissioner Joe Nunder. Dr. Joe Nunder was the chairman of the County Commission when last year's budget was passed that created the cold case unit. I have Taylor Garrison, detective, Brandon Clark, detective. I have Lieutenant Mariah Piper, and I have Captain Adam Caskey, who is the Bureau Commander of our Investigations Bureau. There's many more people behind the scenes that have been working on this case, as I said, for decades. I don't want to leave them out, but these are the folks that have been working diligently most recently in bringing this case to a resolution. So the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, as you know, has arrested Kevin Holloway in connection with the 1999 murder of Esco Hunter Jr., a case that remained unsolved for almost 3 decades. This arrest follows an extensive and renewed investigation conducted by these hardworking detectives and supervisors behind me. Their work reflects our continued priority of pursuing long-standing unsolved cases and delivering justice for the victims and their families. We currently have on our website 25 individuals that have died from homicidal violence and additional folks that are on there that are missing under suspicious circumstances. So I want to take a minute and just refer to this guide that Matt talked about, and I hope that every member of the media will take one of these with them. If you're listening or your viewers are out there, they can also get this information at sarasotasheriff.org. That is our website. Go to the upper right-hand corner in the search window, type in cold cases. It will produce this bulletin right here. Now, why is that important? As I mentioned, we've got 25 cases here of folks that are seeking justice. The families are seeking justice going all the way back, as I mentioned, to 1959. So we hope that our media partners will push that out there and that we will get additional information, tips, and I'm going to provide the numbers which you can contact our detectives and Crime Stoppers at the end of this, and I'll certainly take some questions at the end. We have stated as an agency several times over the years, but it bears repeating, and I have emphasized in my conversations with family members my personal commitment that we will put resources towards these cold cases. This is the first of hopefully many cases that have come to fruition, including our oldest unsolved case, the murder of the entire Walker family in 1959. The case that I want to share with you today is the murder of Esco Hunter Jr., which occurred on November 30th, 1999, in the early morning hours when deputies responded to a vehicle fire near the intersection of Myrtle Street and North Orange Avenue in Sarasota. Fire personnel located a vehicle concealed in the wooded area that was fully engulfed in flames. You see on our screen up here on the bottom of the screen are 2 photos. As you can see, the vehicle was burned significantly, was put out by the fire department, and we were able to collect evidence from that van. The vehicle was later identified as belonging to the victim, Esco Hunter Jr. The following day, December 1st, 1999, deputies responded to the area of Central Avenue and 43rd Street, less than a quarter of a mile as the crow flies from the burned vehicle where Mr. Hunter's body was discovered. And you can see the map on the top right there, the short distance between the van and where Esco was located. The medical examiner's office later determined the cause of death to be multiple gunshot wounds and ruled that the manner of death was homicide. Despite the case being unsolved for many years, investigators continued to review new evidence, conduct interviews, and analyze forensic findings. And I can tell you anecdotally, these folks went to the end of the earth and all over this state to collect evidence and did yeoman's work. The cold case unit re-examined witness statements, telephone records, and physical evidence, which ultimately led to the development of new and corroborating information that was extremely important to this case. Investigators also credit the willingness of new witnesses to come forward, whose information provided critical insight and helped advance this long-standing investigation. On February 9, 2026, just a few days ago, Kevin Holloway was served with an arrest warrant signed by a circuit judge from the 12th Judicial Circuit and charged with second-degree murder, arson, and 2 counts for tampering with evidence in this case. He is currently being held in the Sarasota County Jail without bond. The Sheriff's Office extends its appreciation to the investigators, the forensic professionals, prosecutors, you, the media, and witnesses who contributed to this case over the years. Our agency remains steadfast in its dedication to reviewing unsolved cases and pursuing accountability, no matter how much time has passed. It is our agency's hope that this development brings a measure of comfort and long-awaited justice to Esco Hunter's family. I just want to make 2 points here about the length of time it's taken to solve this case. As a general rule, I think the detectives will tell you the more time that passes, the more difficult these cases are to solve. And I would say perhaps in this case, time has helped us a little bit. As folks mature, as they get later in life, as they reflect on their involvement or their knowledge, we had a lot of folks that came forward and gave information. It helped detectives connect the dots and, more importantly, close that timeline. The Walker case from 1959, that's a tough case with the passage of time. But I think with this one, we've had additional folks come forward now kind of late in the game, but nonetheless helpful. And we take that, and I think that's probably because their life circumstances have perhaps just changed a little bit. But I want to mention to our media partners and to anybody that's listening or watching this, that just because we've made the arrest of Kevin Holloway, if there is additional information out there or anybody has additional evidence that they'd like to provide to us, leads, whatever the case may be, we are still taking those in even though we have arrested Mr. Holloway. And on this pamphlet, again, I'll just say, I've lived in this community for 44 years. I recognize a lot of these cases from when I was younger, when I worked at a different agency. And there's a lot of folks in this community who know these people in this pamphlet. They worked with them. Their kids went to school with them. They shopped at the same grocery. Maybe they were neighbors. So I just want to make the plea, through our media partners, if you give us that thread to pull on, I can assure you these detectives will unravel that sweater. So if it's firsthand, secondhand, thirdhand, rumor, lore, whatever you want to call it on some of these old cases, we want that information. We will run those leads to ground and we will make sure that we have vetted them. And oftentimes it just takes one person who said, I had a conversation with a coworker, or I had a conversation in the grocery store, or my daughter went to school with their children, and this is what we heard, that will lead us on a different path and be able to solve it. In fact, that's in a lot of ways how Esco's case just kind of gravitated where it gravitated, and we were able to get these additional witnesses and additional evidence. So regardless of how much time has passed, everybody in this community probably remembers several of these cases and had some interaction with these folks in one way or another. Anything that you think is even remotely relevant, and I have people that tell me all the time, Sheriff, I hate to call you, I saw this car on my street and it was driving suspiciously. Call, tell us. We want to explore that. We have technology and we have ways now that we can gather this information. So if anybody is out there being reluctant about picking up the phone saying this is just a rumor they heard or whatever the case may be, there are 25 families right here in this pamphlet that are waiting for the justice that Esco's family had to wait almost 3 decades for. So please, please make those calls. Anyone with information related to any of the cases in this pamphlet, or as I mentioned, Esco's case, is encouraged to contact the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, Criminal Investigations Section, Cold Case Unit, at cold case, one word, at sarasotasheriff.org. These are on our website as well. Or directly to the cold case unit by phone, 941-861-4248. And lastly, Crime Stoppers, if you want to remain anonymous, be as detailed as you possibly can, but you can remain anonymous by calling 941-366-TIPS, TIPS, or 941-366-8477. So I'm going to take questions, but before I do that, I just want to recognize County Commissioner Dr. Joseph Nunder and his involvement in this case. So Commissioner Nunder was the chair of our county commission last year. And we've had some tough budget cycles, and we're in some other tough budget cycles coming up. But I made the case to the county commission under Dr. Nunder's leadership and said, I need full-time cold case detectives working these cases, and I need the county commission to fund the ability to get these positions, and he did. So, Dr. Nunder, if you'd like to say a few words, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. My comments will be brief. Health and safety in Sarasota County starts with the men and women that are not only here behind me today, but the ones that are working in the back of the building, on the streets, on the waters every day. With proper protection, our families can go out in the community, feel safe to conduct business, be with their families, and live a high quality of life. I cannot express my gratitude to our sheriff, to your team, all the men and women of our sheriff's department who continue to keep our community safe, and in this case have brought some peace and resolution to the family of this particular cold case. And I am always happy to support the men and women throughout law enforcement, throughout our community now and in perpetuity. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, can I shake your hand? Thank you for your
Thank you,
support.
sir.
I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
sir.
So with that, I'll open it up to questions specifically about Esco, and we can talk about some of the cases that are in here as well. We appreciate your help on that.
Thank you for having us, Sheriff.
Of course.
In this particular case, can you share more about the connection between the two, perhaps a motive behind this case?
Yeah, so it's our belief that obviously these folks knew each other, had some past history together, and there's some allegations that this may have been a drug deal, and that seems to ring true. But I will say this, much like some of the cases in here, we have a few young ladies in here who were prostitutes that were murdered, and certainly, you know, Esco, regardless of whatever they were involved in, nobody deserves to be murdered, particularly the way that Esco was murdered. So, yeah, we believe there's some connections there, and that's how they know each other, and we're still connecting the dots on some of that. But our goal right now is for Mr. Hunter's family that we bring the person to justice. We believe we have the right person in custody.
Sheriff, in Esco's case specifically, what kind of technology did you guys have now that maybe wasn't available back in 1999?
Yeah, so we've got a ton of technology. I've had this conversation recently, you know, with all the electronic devices, with all the cameras that are available, that kind of thing. But I have to say, you're kind of stuck with the information that you had circa whatever the homicide was. And these detectives have worked really hard on getting kind of non-traditional phone records and early messaging systems and things. So the evidence is kind of contemporary to the period that we're talking about, 1999. Now, obviously, witnesses' activities and people that are involved potentially in this case afterwards, we have the ability to monitor them and to see some of that evidence with newer technology, but they did a really good job with the technology that they had in terms of phone records, and I know there's receipts that we have. What we're trying to do in this case is you've got Esco coming from Miami, you've got Holloway here, so you literally and figuratively have this gap. We're trying to fill in those gaps and connect them, and I think with the information that they had available and how they dug into some of these phone records and travel records, and by going back and re-interviewing witnesses, what day did this happen, where were you at, we were able to fill in the pieces, and I think we have connected the beginning of the trail to the end of the trail with the arrest of Mr. Holloway.
What reaction did you get from the family?
Yeah, so Francine is here. I'm respecting her privacy, and she doesn't want to speak about the case. It's still very raw for the family and for her mother, but Francine, I'll just say you're the reason why we do this, right? You're the reason why these folks travel all over the state of Florida and work a lot of late hours and And with Commissioner Nunder's help, we now have full-time people on that. So they've been very appreciative, and Francine shared with me that, that her mother is getting some of this information. And it's always good that family members can have some closure. None of the folks on this pamphlet are ever going to be brought back to us, but the next best thing that we can do is hold those responsible accountable, and that's what we've done, and we've shared that with Esco's family.
Francine is
Yes,
his
sister.
sister.
Holloway's been walking for so long now. What's next for him?
Well, he's currently in custody in our jail on no bond. So I would just say, I think I said it once, I'll say it again. If there's folks out there who were fearful of Mr. Holloway and by his record and reputation, I think that's a valid concern. We have him in custody. The court has ordered no bond. He has another pending charge that he's in there on. This would be a good time to pick up the phone and call one of these numbers or email these detectives behind me and help us close that gap even more. So obviously, as a former prosecutor, I can tell you sometimes these homicide cases take a year or two in our jail, going through the discovery process, getting counsel assigned, a variety of different hearings. So unfortunately for Francine and her family, this is not going to be resolved next week or probably next month, but we'll be following it closely.
Sheriff, after a breakthrough in this case, how much more hopeful do you feel about solving the rest of these 25 cases?
Well, so I'll say this to you. I made a commitment to these families, many of which I've spoke to, many of which have cried on the phone to me. I feel terrible for them that they can't get conclusion to some of these cases with their family members. But Captain Caskey will tell you, and I say it jokingly, I may have to write the check one day, but I always say, Captain Caskey, if I had $1 million right here on the table, what would you use it for on this case? And so far, I think I'm 0 for 3 on anybody taking me up on the money. So it tells me we've done everything that we can possibly do to this point, short of, our media partners helping us get new tips. But in terms of the technology or anything that we want to test, yeah, there'll always be loose ends that you want to tie up. But I don't think there's any significant piece of evidence out there that we have not attempted to get or that we could get with appropriate funding. There's not a gap there.
In this case, what was the key element to leading to the arrest? Just checking telephone records?
Yeah, so I think, as I said before, you have, Esco leaving Miami, coming here, and, then his murder here. We needed to be able to kind of connect those dots, the breadcrumbs, if you will, that connected and really nailed down the timeline that he was around Mr. Holloway, getting some anecdotal comments from witnesses that talked about what they were doing, where they were going, who was with them. We had a gap there, and we've closed that gap significantly, I would say, but we would still take any additional information that's out there for sure.
Was it phone log information?
Well, that always helps,
It
right?
wasn't available back then, which is available now. Was that able to pile the pieces together?
Sure, and again, with the technology from then, it doesn't necessarily, our phones today will tell you within 4 feet of where you're standing right here at this podium. We don't have that, but with receipts, with witnesses talking about the travel and phone records, it's really painted a better picture of the overall situation, which ended with Esco linking up with Holloway. Let's let a few other folks, if they've got a question. Anybody? I'll come back to you if they don't. Yes, sir.
The case was reopened in 2017.
Correct.
The arrest didn't come till this year.
Yeah.
What took so long?
Well, a lot of this relies on witness testimony, right? And I must say both Detective Garrison and Detective Clark have formed a rapport with a lot of these people, and they've traveled over to them, didn't ask them to come over here necessarily, went over and sat with them and had conversations with them. And I just think, thinking as a former prosecutor, a lot of times you have to sit down, just kind of knee to knee with people and have a conversation with them and explain what the victim's family is going through in order to get them maybe to be a little more forthcoming with some of that information. And I know there were a lot of witnesses that we did that with.
When he was charged, he was already in prison?
He was,
he
in jail,
In your jail?
county jail.
And what was he in for?
He was in for a homicide that was worked by the Sarasota Police Department.
When was he arrested for that?
You'd have to look that up, and you have to get with Sarasota Police Department on that, but he was in custody on another homicide in our jail at the time.
He was charged with 2 homicides.
He is, and the arson and the tampering with evidence in this case. So So let me just leave you all with this one more time. If you will mention to your viewers and your listeners to take a look at that. There is short bios on each one of these individuals. Some were closer than others, but it just takes one phone call from somebody who knows something. And truly, nothing is trivial or insignificant. I can assure you, nothing would please the hardworking detectives behind me any more than to find tomorrow morning a full inbox in their email and a voicemail system that's jammed up with folks that are willing to help. We are going to solve some of these cases, and as long as I'm here, we're going to continue to work on these. We have the support of our funding source from the Board of County Commissioners, and now we have detectives working full-time on this. So again, to our media partners, thank you so much. This is probably the most media we've had on our cold cases. I've done a lot of one-on-one interviews about these cases, but there are, as I said, solvable cases here with your help. So if no other questions, appreciate everybody. Yes, sir.
One more quick question. How many detectives are on cold case full-time?
Yeah, so we have Detective Garrison and Detective Clark behind me, and we also have a volunteer who's a former deputy sheriff here that is working and giving us volunteer hours and very helpful. So we have John Bueller doing that, and we have the two detectives behind me.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, thank you so much, everybody.